Thank you for having me here today. An Irishman followed by a Scottishman. I don't think there's an Englishman next, so can't make any gags there. But it's very good to be here. As Eric said, I've probably spoken to a lot of you over the years, pestered you for research interviews. Now it's your time to get your own back on me. Feel free to catch me at any point during the day to pick my brains. So what I'll be talking about today is energy data becoming the new strategic asset. But first, for those of you who don't know Verdantix, we're an independent analyst firm focused on energy, environment, and sustainability. We're founded in 2007. We have offices in New York and London. I sit within the energy practice, and my job within that practice is to look after energy management software and technologies for the sake of energy efficiency, advising both corporates, but then also suppliers and services firms. So today, what I'm looking to talk about is energy a strategic issue for firms today? And then what role does data have to play in all this? First of all, is energy a strategic issue for firms today? Well, Sanjay's also shown some of our data today. We run global surveys on energy, environment, and sustainability, and this is an extract from our Energy Leaders survey, where we asked 250 energy leaders within global corporates various questions around governance structures, budgets, priorities, investments. And so we asked firms, how do you govern energy? And we see here between 2012 and 2014 to really moving towards global, centralized energy management strategies. And the reason we see that is working on one of what Francis was talking about, corporates really seeing the value in this from the top down. It's really starting to get on that agenda that this is something we should be keeping tabs on. And it will be something, though, we see not much movement in the bottom where it's local managers. Again, it's factual that we're looking across industries. In some industries, such as large industrials, it makes sense to organize energy at the local level, but still, even within those organizations, we're still seeing a lot more information being shared up to the corporate level for the big decisions to be made. So, moving on to the next slide, there are four main drivers for firms investing in energy management, and those are economics, customers, sustainability, and legislation. Again, Sanjay's already talked about some of those. But moving on to the next slide, they're not always seen in the same light. When we interview firms and ask them about these drivers, okay, we do have some pioneers out there that do embrace sustainability, embrace legislation, can see what's happening, but actually the reality is most people like to think about economics and customers. Economics means profit, revenue, money, customers, gaining market share, translating into profit, revenue. When it comes to sustainability, what's this new concept? How much is it going to cost me? A sustainability report, what do I need to do for that? Who's going to do it? Whose responsibility? Legislation, why do I have to do that? Again, how much is it going to cost me? So those are generally seen as a negative light amongst a lot of organizations, which thankfully is starting to change, but we're not quite there yet. And that's reflected again in some of our survey findings on the next slide, where we see cost savings and energy price risk mitigation, two big factors coming out as the most important issues. So we asked firms to rank from 1 to 5 these issues in terms of which were the most significant for firms investing in energy management. And again, when we look here, cost savings number 1. It's always going to be number 1. And then compliance with legislation. It's a reluctant second. It's the one which some people, even when I discuss with them, they say that's not a driver. It's something I have to do. Again, what Francis was talking about, just to have my license to operate, I have to do that. I don't wake up one day and think that's a grand idea. I'm definitely going to do that. It's something I'm forced to do. But then when we get down to sustainability targets and reputational benefits, this chart's not meant to say that these are not important. This is a ranking chart, so they're just less important in the eyes of most individuals than cost savings. But again, we're seeing firms starting to try and appreciate the reputational benefits which energy and sustainability strategies can provide. So on the next slide, what I do is look at why energy management may be somewhat strategic. And the issue is some people can talk about these drivers always being individual things. So the CFO looks at economics. The CSO looks at sustainability. The director of EH&S, he is in charge of legislation. Sales and marketing, they come up with wonderful ideas for our customers. But the thing with energy, energy underlies everything which we do. If you look at your own organizations, what could you do without energy? And energy impacts all of these. If you look at energy efficiency, it has economic benefits from reducing your consumption or procuring energy in a better way. That reduced energy consumption can feed into your sustainability strategy and your messaging, your communication. We've already seen what impact that had on Unilever. That positive sustainability message impacts into how your customers perceive you as an organization. Not to mention that you've reduced your operational costs, so hopefully some of those cost savings are making your way through to your customers, making you more competitive. Those energy efficiency, helping you in terms of legislation when it comes to satisfying targets, or if you're in any mandatory schemes such as the CRC, which we have in the UK. And also, by looking at energy, you reduce the costs of doing all of these things. By having access to data and access to the way to automate that data, you reduce the costs of doing sustainability. Legislation no longer has to be seen as something that, how much money is this going to cost? It only costs you money if you're not prepared for it. You need to have that data and information ready, and then all of these issues become a lot easier to handle. So, with all that being said, we do think that all firms should have, on the next slide, a strategy in place to think about and manage the opportunities and risks associated with energy. And opportunities and risk go hand in hand with things that board members like to talk about. But for me, I don't necessarily like talking too much about the risks. Because risks, what if this happens? What if this new legislation comes out? What if we run out of water? There's always ifs, and where there's always if, there's always buts, and you get people delaying. If you focus the conversation around opportunities, those opportunities are here today, and we should take them today. The opportunities are not potential opportunities in the future. When you're talking about energy efficiency, you've been wasting energy for 15 to 20 years. There's opportunities facing you tomorrow. So take those opportunities. And by having an energy strategy in place, not only will you maximize those opportunities, you'll also mitigate a lot of those risks which are out there in the market. But on the next slide, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Energy is not the most important issue for the majority of firms. So again, when people talk about things becoming strategic, the automatic thing goes to CEOs and CFOs and CEOs and board members and investors all sat around a big table really discussing this. And that's almost a bit worrying. If you're, say, a car manufacturer and your CEO is losing sleep over energy consumption, something's gone a bit astray in your business. He is supposed to be worrying about cars and the car industry and how many cars he makes. But that's not to say it's not important, because energy, you don't just put cars together with Lego. It's quite an important factor. It's a big important cost base. So you most definitely should be aware of that. And we see the C-suite, they should be responsible for signing off a firm's energy management strategy. I put an emphasis on signing off. Generally, they're not the most knowledgeable people when it comes to energy or sustainability, but they are the ones with the biggest clout when it comes to saying this is what we're going to do. So firms should get the core individuals together that understand those issues. They develop the strategy and advise the C-suite on what they should be signing off. Second of all, they should be in charge of putting in place a governance structure. Nothing happens if nobody's responsible for it. If it's not in my targets to write X number of reports a quarter, guess what? I don't write X number of reports a quarter. It's a simple fact. People need to be held responsible, but also they need support. Your employees need to know that if I have a great idea for energy efficiency, I know who to turn to, and you know that there'll be support there. You then also need to allocate an annual budget for energy management. If something doesn't have a budget, it's quite honestly not important, because you don't expect you have to spend any money on it. And again, people need to know that that budget's going to be there for them. And then the last point, they should be responsible for reviewing performance against targets. Constantly reviewing where that organization is and making sure that their company, their employees are doing what they want to do, and they are moving towards the targets that they set out. And really, the last point there is a lack of centralized energy budgets and governance structure really is the biggest barrier to firms investing in energy, environment, and sustainability. And that's where, again, data comes into a massive play here, because what we're saying here is CEOs, CFO, they're too busy to deal with energy and sustainability, but they're not too busy to deal with the big risks and the big issues. So you need to make sure that they're only alerted to the big issues, the big risks. And that comes from having complete transparency into all of your data, but it's easy for them to access, but they don't have to view a computer screen every day trying to find the latest risk. The information's there, but they only get involved when big issues arise or almost when there's great performance. So the second role, what role does data have to play in all of this? So data plays a central role in an energy management strategy. And this little image that I created here is actually from an extract of one of the reports I did on looking at the uses of energy management software and how firms should be using energy management software within their organization. And you see data conveniently right in the middle and being pretty big. It was one of the most mentioned words that I used in that report. Then you see other words such as performance, costs, strategies, streamline, incentive, accurate, assets, compliance, generation, maintenance. Energy data is behind all of these. It is the thing that allows you to start optimizing all of these aspects. And that's why energy data is so important, that it goes further than what most people appreciate. Most people just think it's looking at their utility bills and seeing that, oh, this store is using too much energy, I should do something. Oh, lots of people talk about LEDs, I'll do that, problem solved. That's not the case. This is the core issue. Energy runs through every facet of your organization, whether it's the mobile phones which you all charge at work, your laptops, or the ability for you actually to manufacture products or provide services. But then people can also just get caught up as and when people talk about strategic issues. Data, big data, oh, I love those words. We've done reports on big data. But can you ever have too much data? Yes. If you do not have a robust data management system, all you've done is create a new problem and a new mess. You have thousands of rows of Excel to sift through. It's all unstructured. You don't know where to look. I mean, most firms don't even know who's supposed to be looking for the issues within the files, which they don't even know where they are. And that's why a data management system provides the visibility. Data is what you need to be looking at, and it's sort of energy management software is putting on the glasses which allow you to really focus in and see the clear image of what's important and what you need to be doing. Another important aspect of an energy management software platform and data and information is the fact that this needs to be shared. There's no point in collecting information and putting in a big repository. People need to be able to access it. They need to be able to understand it. And again, this chart from one of the reports we did on looking at smart innovators, what we're trying to show here is that energy has tactical uses. So people who should be using it every day, energy and facilities professionals, your sustainability professionals, those that are actually procuring energy, your supply chain. It also has strategic uses, where the CFO should be looking to minimize financial risks, looking at business efficiency. Your COO should be using energy as a key metric and looking at your entire firm's operational efficiency. But one of the most important things is these things should not be done in silos. They need to be shared. You need to have people communicating with each other. And again, a data management system allows you to do this, not only just vertically and up so that you can satisfy your boss who says, you're now monitoring energy for me, send me it once a month. But that also comes back down, where your boss is going, no, that isn't great performance. So-and-so in Kentucky is doing far better. Why are you not doing that? But also sharing of best practices. Too often we see great individuals within firms which have taken a passion for energy and sustainability, doing great things, and the rest of the organization never hears about it. Those same principles can be applied throughout the organization. The information just needs to be shared. And that's what data managed in a correct way can really allow you to start to do. And again, to get the interest of the CEO, the CFO, it needs to be easily available to them quickly in a way that's easy to consume with the big issues. But I can't emphasize strongly enough that information needs to be able to come back down. We speak to all too many firms which get the corporate note that we're now doing this, please send us the information. So each manufacturing plant will send information up, but they do not know what the plant's doing in the state next to them. They have zero visibility into that, and that's just not the way to make progress. The other reason why data and technology and data management is such an important thing in all this is these companies are the ones which are pushing the boundaries on looking at what new things can we do with this data. I mean, energy data, it's always existed. We've been using energy for years. It's not a new thing. However, the applications and the uses of it and the companies that are driving these, that's the new thing. And again, some corporates can be blamed for getting us into a bit of a pickle, as Francis was discussing. But there's others that are here to get us out of that pickle. And it's those firms with their investment, their innovation, them hiring great employees that they're looking to bring more and more intelligence into those solutions. And again, take it away from having to have skilled individuals pouring through data and trying to find the next big issue or big problem to solve for firms. However, you can't solve all the problems with data and technology. There's still no replacement for human analysis and interpretation of that data. So again, software doesn't solve the problem. Very few firms are willing to automate their complete facilities over to some guy sat in a control center somewhere that doesn't really know much about a paper mill. However, you're willing to let him switch off your factory whenever you want. No, that's not for me. So you still need people to look at that data and interpret it. And that's, again, where firms need to ensure they have the correct governance structures in place in the teams, but really can consume that data and put it into action. Because all too often, again, we see firms that maybe follow my advice in terms of you should invest in energy management software, and they do so. And then I speak to them, how's it going? It's not really doing much. What are you doing with it? Not much. How many people are using it? Oh, just me at the moment. No, I didn't tell you just to buy it for the sake of going out and buying a new pair of shoes. Like, you have to use those or else it's a worthless investment. And that's why we really feel that people need the right access to data and the right tools for managing data if your energy management is going to be successful. So at the bottom of this pyramid, we have data. It's the foundation. It's what we've always had. We've just never really put it to work. And then what we're seeing now in the market is software-driven integration and analytics really coming in and taking all of that data and information. Because again, when I talk about energy management, I'm not just talking about kilowatt hours or costs. I'm talking about occupancy data. I'm talking about looking at some of the other performance metrics which you use in your facilities when you're manufacturing widgets. I'm talking about financial data. You need to overload all of that information to truly understand what energy is doing, or else it's just a data point. You have no context around it. And then you have the analytics layer. That's the one that's sat on top, trying to automate a lot of this and really put out actionable intelligence which firms can really get hold of and act upon and guide their strategies. But on top of that, you need the human-driven strategy and program management layer. Nothing's going to happen if no one picks up the information and does anything with it. And that's where we're seeing firms be very successful with their internal teams or relying on some of the largest energy services firms or utilities to provide that excellence and guidance. Because again, if you're a car manufacturer, you've not got a background in energy. But there are people out there which have thousands of staff responsible for looking at energy management. And they, again, get great value from firms that choose to invest in energy management data and software. And to, again, discuss the list of potential benefits, I like to move away from just talking about energy and look at some of the other benefits of energy management software on the next slide. So we see firms using energy management software in a number of different ways. So reducing CapEx by improving asset utilization, look into data centers, virtual servers, look into firms which are using energy data to identify, hang on a minute, if we compare that with occupancy, we've got loads of offices out there that are half full. Why? Let's just consolidate everything. We see improved employee comfort and working conditions. No longer are staff sweltering in the summer and playing around with the HVAC settings. All of this can be automated and taken out of their hands so that you ensure comfort, but without the hassle. Reducing external data assurance costs. We've heard firms which, the ability to, if you're going to do a sustainability report and get that data audited, don't go through the hassle. Provide them with a login, a simple password. You can set up the privileges so that they only have access to certain parts of your system. They can see a full audit trail. Any missing data, at a click of the button, they can see exactly the formula, the assumptions that you've used to get that data. Reducing OPEX through improved maintenance regimes. Why send someone out to go and check an RTU every 6 months or every 12 months? It's working fine. They'll come back with a report. Yeah, nothing wrong with it. As soon as they walk away from it, it breaks. Won't get found for 6 months because they're not due to be back for 6 months. If you're looking at the energy consumption of that asset, you can get alerted exactly when that asset stops working. And that prevents people running around for no issue. And I mean, I don't have enough time for the list to go through the entire list, but really what I urge firms to do is try and think a little bit outside the box in terms of where energy can benefit your organization. It's not just about cutting 5% and doing a lighting project. Energy is a fantastic metric at looking at how everything operates. Everything that uses energy is a key thing in looking at how optimized that is. And on the next slide, I have some examples of where we've seen firms looking at energy in a sort of kind of weird manner outside of the whole energy efficiency. So a large North American retailer during Hurricane Sandy, this is a really bad thing. We can't send employees to site. There's a hurricane coming. But how are we going to know what sites have lost power? How are we going to know which refrigeration cabinets go down? How much food are we going to have to waste? They realized the one system they had that was plugged into every single facility they had and could be used to determine how well that site was operating, their energy management system. They formulated an entire team in the middle of the US, well out the way of Sandy, to sit there around the clock, putting together the strategy for how they were going to deal with Sandy, getting the generators in place, getting the maintenance teams out, and not wasting food when it didn't have to be. A European grocery retailer, they had already invested in shutters to pull down in front of refrigeration cabinets. Staff weren't doing it. So the original investment was wasted. They spent all that money getting none of the benefits. They used their energy management system to monitor the alarms and give that information to their staff every single day to show them that you still haven't got the message. You're still wasting energy. This is not acceptable. A high street retailer, their sales and marketing team, leave the doors open. If you leave the doors open, people don't like opening doors. More people will come in. More people come in, they'll buy more stuff. Fantastic. What about the HVAC consumption? So they did a trial to determine at what time of year can we leave the doors open and it doesn't have a significant impact. And they did that through looking at occupancy and temperature to get the true cost of doing so. A global technology firm not only cut its energy costs, but also its maintenance costs by hooking up every single asset. And no longer do people go around with a clipboard to check everything. They only go as and when required. A casino looked into comfort is their big thing. People like to gamble in comfort. And the one thing they would never compromise is the comfort of their gamblers. So they always ran the HVAC full pelt. There's no chance we're making it too hot in here because if everybody walks out, they're going to the MGM, not having that. So what they realized was through looking at energy consumption, linking it with occupancy, you don't have to do those trade-offs. The trade-off becomes the fine balance between occupancy and temperature. You optimize your building for the conditions that it's feeling that day. And a cold food storage, definitely not a sustainability story. They increased their energy consumption and reduced their energy costs. How? How do you possibly do that? Well, it's not just how much energy you use, it's when you use it. And again, energy data was the key thing for them being able to determine it. And that individual going to the CFO and going, I've got a great plan. We're going to reduce costs by using more. Wouldn't have added up if he didn't have the data to display that day with him to show, I've done the analysis, it's going to work. So in summary, on the next slide, a recurring theme, energy is increasing in importance. However, it's not a core board level issue in most instances, but that's not to mean it should be ignored. They just don't have the time, so we need to take that opportunity to provide them the information in a way which allows them to give it enough attention without it being a burden on their time. And then data plays a central and pivotal role in successful energy management strategies. It really is the key to, one, finding the opportunities, but two, communicating those opportunities. If you've got a reluctant CFO or a reluctant CEO, it's all too well to go and speak to him about maybe hypothetical situations or there are opportunities. If you go with cold, hard numbers, that individual themselves can see the opportunities that exist and you're far more likely to gain budget and secure support for your energy management strategies. So that's all from me, apart from the questions I think Eric's got for me now.
No, that was great. I've gotten a few questions. If there's more, please deliver them. But Alistair, one thing that came up that you didn't talk much about was the use of interval data. And so how is the use of interval data changing organizations' analysis of energy?
Yeah, so the use of interval data gives you that next step level of granularity, that next of when am I using it? And you can then start looking into, well, how much does that cost me, but also what am I switching on at that time? Or what haven't I switched off at that time? If you don't have that, you have a cost, just a bill. And it's similar to, when I talk about this, if you imagine your expenses, if you just hand over your expenses to your boss and you only just gave them $500, are they going to turn around and say, oh, okay? No, they want to know what you spent it on, and then they'll look into it. 2 a.m. in a casino, I don't care if it was air conditioned, that is not an expense. And that's what interval data gives you. It gives you that next level of granularity to really identify what it was that's causing that and how much it really costs you.
Okay, great. And then here's another question. We actually get this a lot in our webinars, but one of the participants here today has asked it. Do you see the users of energy data changing in the enterprise?
Yes, I think as the message goes forward that energy data and people understand that energy is everywhere. You have accounts, teams using it for the traditional uses. But again, that example of the energy manager within a global retail store that realized that all of the employees weren't pulling down the blinds. Suddenly, the head of produce had to be involved with energy and found himself looking at energy data every day because he had to pass that message on. Again, sales and marketing teams had thought, this is a great idea. Their employees were, well, actually, is it a great idea? And they became alerted to the benefits of energy data. So we definitely see that firms and individuals just don't quite see at the moment how much energy impacts exactly everything that we do. And I think the growth in residential energy management will help see individuals take more responsibility for what we do in terms of energy, and that will be reflected into the workplace, that regardless if you've got energy in your title, you will be thinking about it or be made aware of it at the very least.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Alistair. We always like hearing from you.